This is Critical Nonsense, your highbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Joey and special guest Chloe Sutter talk about dating and high-yield investment strategies.
Woo!
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. This is what a Joey sounds like. And this is what a special guest and matchmaker Chloe Sutter sounds like.
Hello, hello.
Returning guest, second appearance. I thought third. But Chloe's back. Previously, her and Claire Troy gave us what will we call the previous, like the state of influencers, or what did we talk about last time?
I think that would be a kind way of putting it. It probably was more like 30 minutes of Claire and I divulging a good amount of brain rot based on overusage of social media.
All right. Well, this week, maybe not in a dissimilar vein, but Chloe, you have a new question to bring to the table.
That we do. We are here to talk about dating, which is the topic everyone talks about with their boss on a podcast. But we're here. We're doing it. But we wanted to talk to you today about the dating culture, what's happening on the scene, and how it's been kind of optimized. I am currently obsessed with influencer extraordinaire Becca Bloom, who has hopped on the scene, I would say, in the last couple months and skyrocketed to my For You page. I am obsessed with her. I listen to everything she says. And she talks about kind of how she optimized her dating process. And when she gave her credentials as to why she could speak about it, she flashed the largest diamond engagement ring I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was sad. I was listening. My ears perked up and I was ready to welcome feedback and inputs with open arms. But she talks a lot about dating as this high yield investment strategy and how you kind of put in the effort or work to get out what you want in these different kind of strategies, be it from how you handle dates and how you optimize your time on dating to ensure that you're so clear and upfront from the start about what you want, to once you have a partner, how you kind of engage and encourage the behaviors that you're looking for. So I want to talk a little bit today about that and kind of how this world that we live in has optimized for the funnel task of dating.
I mean, a high yield investment strategy, first of all, is like, yes, and doesn't feel great. Like, like it is interesting to think about. Like, it's super true, right? Like the idea of like, you're going to invest your time, energy, effort, emotions into another person when you're like looking for a partner in like a very explicit sense. And also, as soon as you're like talking about it in like finance terms, like when am I going to receive my return on investment? Like what are the dividends of investing in? Like it I don't know. Part of me is like always excited by like an interesting frame or like how different people are making sense of it. And I wouldn't say I have like an allergic reaction, but I'm like, does it feel, romantic, I guess, maybe?
The answer would be no. Well, high yield investment strategy when it comes to dating, I would not say is romantic. But it's interesting because I have only ever dated in this time period where dating has been somewhat optimized, be it from dating apps or just kind of the culture we've created around it feels like it can remove the emotion from the experience so often. And it does feel like, it is, I would personally say, the most emotional experience in the world of like love and relationships and meeting someone. And high yield investment strategy, like this optimization culture around like, if you want this, you do this, and this is the effort and energy you put in to get that. Like, I get it and it works and it feels like it works. And so like, to a certain extent, I'm like, maybe that's the strategy I should try. But on the other hand, it's like, oh my gosh, is this really how we're going about it? Maybe it's how people always went about it and they just never put the terms to it. But it does feel like I get the allergic reaction to it because it's doesn't feel natural sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, high yield engagement or high yield investment strategy, and she's flashing a big diamond ring, right? Is like, seems like a question of what are you optimizing towards. I would assume based on not knowing or seeing her videos, she's optimizing towards like wealth or status and like knowing what's important to you, like being willing to sort of balance out things of like finding someone. I mean, maybe she got it all, like a kind person who's really wealthy and super handsome and like all of these other things. But that question of like, how are you prioritizing and like understanding it? Like I can at least appreciate, like know thyself, like what's most important to you. She's like, he's got to have a big bank account. Great. And like, I'm going to orient everything around that. Like good for her, I guess, you know?
Spoken like a true strategist. What are you optimizing for? I was like, oh.
Yeah.
No, it's such a good point. And like, I'm obsessed with her. I love it. She had this whole thing where she was like, I mean, listen, it's social media. I don't really know what happens behind closed doors. I just see the videos that she posts and I'm obsessed with them. But I mean, it seems like she won the lottery. Like, he's kind. He flies out. He gets her like soup when she's sick. Like, it just feels like everything went her way. But it's so interesting when you talk about it. There was one video, and I don't want to misspeak on some of what she said or butcher some of it, but it's so interesting. She's like, when you go into a date, you, like, first of all, no, maybe you don't want drinks or dinner. Like, maybe actually if it's your first date and you're just getting to meet someone, you want to grab a coffee or you want something low stakes, low effort, something you could kind of easily leave if it doesn't feel like you're vibing with the person, which I'm immediately like, oh my God, but how do you know if you're immediately vibing with the person? Like, maybe you need more time. Maybe you need to figure it out. And then simultaneously, she's like, and also you should lay out everything that you're interested in. Like, if you want X in the next 5 years, if you want Y, like, know thyself and be pretty honest and open about it, which I respected. Maybe it comes down to like, what do I want? Like, what am I interested in? And maybe that's the deeper, greater hang up here. But it is like, it's so that forwardness I really respect, and it feels like it's so much of kind of what's going into it today-ish.
Yeah, there's like a decisiveness in the way that it sounds like anyways, that she's approaching things where she's like, I want this. If I'm showing up and there's nothing there, like, bye. I mean, I'm curious about sort of your experience of the broader conversation, maybe generationally, or maybe just in like, where's the conversation at in like social media and influencers, like as your experience of a woman of a certain age in a major city and like all of the different sort of dynamics that you're experiencing. But it, you know, we're going through this moment that like a lot of economists and political scientists are talking about, like gender polarization in terms of values, political leanings, whatever. There is like a lot of content right now that at least I get exposed to in my like internet ramblings of like, it feels like very like dispose of the entire man. And there's also this, you know, in thinking of like how Becca Bloom is talking about that, of the prioritization. I've seen a bunch of videos of like, I need a man that is this tall. He needs to own his own home, have multiple cars, needs to do like, he needs to be able to take care of my child, that I like a really long laundry list. And it's like, oh man, like I think in dating, like the orientation of like finding an apartment in New York City, if you can get 80% of your list, you're good. You know, like you can't like look for 100% of the list. But I'm curious, like, what is the state of dating discourse right now?
Oof, that's so tough. It's so interesting. I mean, for one, this I guess was last summer, but still very relevant. Like looking for a man in finance, 6'5", blue eyes, trust fund. I mean, that's the list you just read off to a certain extent.
Remixes that came out of that video.
I mean, I think that was like still playing at Coachella a couple weekends ago. They're just really living it out. Yeah. But I do think like so much of that is still relevant. I mean, I don't know, dating culture is just so layered at this point. There's so many things that impact it. It's like also the time in your life where you're at. And I don't know, I think like feels like so much of the conversation around it is to a certain extent. a certain extent, is to a certain extent like that conversation around finance 6'5". Like I have these kind of clear like benchmarks for what I'm looking for and what I'm interested. But I also think the reality of that, when you see like someone posting a video on 6'5" blue eyes, and then they're like, oh, well, he's 5'9" and he's got green eyes and I love him. And like, so be it. That's kind of the way it works. And so I don't know. It's like this, there's a big delta between like ideal and reality.
It makes me think about crushes. I remember when I was in school, we covered at some point in one of my psychology classes, sort of like, it was not like a major priority, but one of the professors who had been studying maybe like social psych or something like that had explored crushes and like what is the dynamic of it, right? Like it is someone who is real, like a person you can see in some capacity in your life. Like maybe it's someone at the gym, someone in a class, someone that you see like at the subway stop, like at most days a week or something like that. You're just sort of on the same schedule and you find them like attractive from afar. But the interesting part about it is what is compelling psychologically about a crush is that you have a couple of real things and then you build an entire story around that person that isn't them, right? Like maybe is slightly informed, but you're just like carrying out these other things of like, they look attractive, you see them, they're similar age, whatever. But then you're like, oh, but they would be so kind to me, or like you build this imagined expectation. And what invariably happens, you know, in the majority of cases is if you were bold enough to like go up and speak to that person or get to meet them, even if you like them, they won't match your expectation. And like that dynamic of like, crushes are intoxicating because you've built a story that is closer to something that you desire. And this balance, like same thing, right? Like the 6'5", like that's not even like a real like you're building a mental model of a person, not even like a real person that you've seen in the world, of like it completely imagined scenario. They're 6'5", they work in finance, they have blue eyes, they're like active, like whatever the rest of those criteria in that original TikTok video were. It's not like an actual human being that you're seeing. And so that delta between an expectation and reality, like anytime you build clear expectations, you're only setting yourself up to be disappointed, whether that's like going on a vacation, whether that's like going to a restaurant that you really want to go to and you're like, and I'm going to eat this and I'm going to have that thing and it's going to taste like this. Like the more you build up expectations, the greater likelihood of disappointment, you know?
100%. What's the thing they say, a crush is just a lack of information.
Yeah.
It's just, you don't know the person.
I've never heard that, but that's true.
Yeah, it's a crush. It's just a lack of information. It's like you only know what you know, and the story you've created around what you don't know is so fantastic and wonderful, and then it's likely not reality. I'm reminded of, there was something posted in the Femmes chat yesterday around, it was a Twitter post, so you might have seen it, and active on Twitter, or X, sorry, and someone had apparently seen this guy at a Subway 2 years ago.
I saw this. I did see it.
and they exchanged numbers. And 2 years later, the guy texted her and was like, hey, this might be really weird, but I've always remembered like how fit you were. And I just wanted to send you a chat because I walked past a Rumble and you had said you were coming from a boxing class. And for whatever reason, every time I walk past a Rumble, I reminded of you and how fit and strong and cool you are, or whatever it was that he said. And like, hope you're doing well. And maybe even, I don't know, at the bottom, he might have even been like, want to grab a drink sometime. But like, you're hanging on to that story you've created for 2 years. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like an interesting part of that was like in the comments below, a woman had said like, one of my best friends had a similar thing happen where she met a guy, they exchanged numbers, and he didn't get back to her for 3 years because his parents had been sick. He was finishing medical school. He was doing other things and he just wasn't in a place. And then he reached out to her after 3 years and they got married, and they've been married for 15 years. And so it's like, it is, you know, you can imagine like all the winding stories that successful relationships have that don't look like some set of like pre-prescribed expectations. Like clearly, even when that woman exchanged numbers in that successful story, she wasn't like, this is going to be the person. And like, she wasn't anticipating that it would be 3 years until they reconnected. So the woman of the newer story with Rumble class, and they met and talked, she was like, we're setting up to go to a workout class next month, and we'll see, like, I'll see what happens. But it is like, it's immediately breaking you out of like, I didn't anticipate this whole thing would go this way. And so it puts you in like a more open mindset versus like, it seems like Becca Bloom is like, I want this. I am an achiever. Like I have an achievement oriented. I've been successful in my work life and school, and like I'm a successful person. So I'm going to take my orientation towards achievement to love. And it like, it worked for her. Great for her, but like that may not work for everybody, you know? Like if she's just like so dogged and diehard and like unashamed to be like, nope, not working, bye, like just stand up and walk out of like a date and be like, nope, not in, like someone walks in the room and sits down and gives her a hug and she doesn't like the way they smell, just like gets up and walks, you know, like yeah. it like success in that path requires sort of like a number of skills that not everyone would have to be able to be successful in the same way, probably, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's like the boxing class lady, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't remember her name, but
Miss Rumble.
Madame Rumble. It reminds me of the butterfly effect, which is like somewhat trending on, do you even call it trending on TikTok as an aside? It's just like popular on TikTok. I feel like you would, whatever, a side point. But the butterfly effect is so popular on TikTok right now. And it's basically like, it's for like romantic relationships, but I would say I see people posting about it with like friendships and jobs and other things, but just like the invisible threads or strings that like can kind of lead you to a person or a thing, where it was like, if I had never been crying on the sidewalk in this moment, then this cab would have never gone by, and then I would have never gotten off at this particular moment, and then I wouldn't have run into this person, and I would have happened to see this guy at a bar, and 3 years later he texted me and now we're together. And it's so crazy, that idea of like the invisible string and how things happen so serendipitously, which does kind of feel, maybe this is unfair, but it feels like so on the other end of the spectrum to like optimizing, knowing what you want, going in, getting after it. Like I have a plan, I'm like chasing it and achieving it, and it's neither is right or wrong, but it's just kind of interesting to see like the different, it's not even, maybe you could call an approach, maybe you wouldn't. I think some things happen haphazardly and some things happen more intentionally, but it's just so interesting to see all the different ways it works.
Totally. Like me and my wife, like, story is like it was just full of a ton of like, you know, like positive coincidences, I guess, you know, like we had known each other through like mutual friends and had like wound up following each other on Twitter because we had mutual friends. And so we would occasionally get, like, this was in like 2010, occasionally being in like shared conversations. So we followed each other. And I'd gone out with a group of people once, and I was doing like a short story website where I was having to write like short fiction. I was pushing myself to do short fiction every day. And one of the days I like spent a little time hanging out with her and wrote a story off of like very much an I didn't know what her interior life was like. I didn't know her well at all, but I just took what I imagined it was like and wrote a short story. But I was in a relationship. Fast forward, like long-term relationship, it had ended. Her Twitter account got hacked, and I sent her an email being like, hey, your Twitter account got hacked. And we started emailing and then G-chatting, and weren't looking to be dating each other, anything, but we're like charmed by the conversation on both sides. And then she happened to be organizing a party that weekend, like with a group of people we were all mutual friends with. I was out with like the guy of this couple that we both were friends with that we didn't know, and she was out with the girl, and then we both all came to the party, and then now, whatever, 13 years later, we're like married and have a child. Like, it was not, and we were both like actively like dating and like pursuing other things at the time, and somehow like by accident, because she was like watching illegal streams of the Olympics from Eastern European websites and her Twitter account got hacked, we like wound up getting married, you know?
So shout out to the hacker, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Russia. Like, on this issue and this issue alone. Like, yeah.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I never knew that. That's such a great story.
Yeah. But it is that, like, I think the openness versus expectation question is like such a big one of like, and we're so bad at knowing what we want. And I think we recognize that in so many other domains, right? That like you could be surprised by like wanting to eat something or like enjoying a place that you thought you wouldn't enjoy or whatever. And somehow in this category, I think we've gotten like culturally, like broadly, at least in the US, more rigid on like what our expectations of, you know, our like a life partner or a marriage partner or whatever will be or do or act like, as opposed to just sort of like finding happiness. Maybe I'm being like way too romantic, like, and where I'm seeing Becca Bloom being like very logical and like achievement oriented, I'm like coming at it from like the very opposite end of just like, you just got to feel it out.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a right or a wrong. It's just like different strokes for different folks. Like everyone goes about things in different ways. And I think both are really cool. And it's nice over the course of this conversation, I went in being like, well, first of all, I went in not thinking we were talking about this, but last minute adjustment. But I went in being like, oh my gosh, we've like over logic dating, and it's become so businesslike and technical and like it's just, have we lost the emotion? And then you are reminded like, oh wait, actually there's so much serendipity, there's the butterfly effect, like there's so much that just happens the way it's meant to happen, and it's really cool.
Do you see like among your friends or like friends of friends, do you see that like logic pattern arising in the way that people are approaching it? Like, you think that is more widespread than just a handful of influencers sharing like this sort of path or approach to it?
I think it's like peaks and valleys. I think it depends on the state or the mood that you're in, or just kind of what's happening. I feel like there are times where my friends will see things like this and they'll get inspired, or maybe be like, oh wait, maybe she knows what she's talking about, or maybe I should try this. And maybe you do try it out, and maybe that is your approach for a few dates, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. I guess it doesn't, like when I think about my personal experience with it and observing my friends' experiences with it, it doesn't feel as fixed as maybe it can appear online, which is, you know, a common theme of being online.
Yeah. Like A/B testing your philosophy on dating. Like, oh, that one didn't work. Like, let's try a different one, and like testing out different approaches and experimentation. Like, that makes sense to me.
Totally. And maybe you're coming out of a series of ones that didn't work, and so you want to take a more logical approach because maybe you don't have like the emotional wherewithal to take a more lax approach or a more fluid approach, or maybe sometimes you're in a headspace where, like, I think it depends.
Is there an orientation towards pursuing longer term relationships right now? Like, as someone who is like happily married, 40, like happily out of the dating scene, you get sort of more like anecdotal things from social or from newsletters or articles or whatever of like, what is Gen Z's like orientation towards dating, and like they're not looking for, or they're not going on dates or things like that. Like there's like a lot of noise from someone outside of that cohort, and it is sort of interesting. And there's also like pandemic related stuff, but like willingness to actually like go up to and talk to someone and sort of invite that serendipity. It seems like, as an outsider, it seems like there had been hesitance around that, but collectively it seems like a lot of people are like, no, we got to do it. Like we got to, approach strangers and put ourselves in uncomfortable positions, and, recognizing that maybe the pandemic like created some like inward withdrawal that is not serving anyone.
Totally. I mean, I maybe I hang out in all the wrong places, but I would say confidently that I have not been out in the past few years where people are like openly really coming up to each other and meeting new people and like pursuing people out in public. I think that goes for like most of what I've seen, broadly speaking. That's like, it's crazy to think about. And I do feel like it's somewhat of a product of the dating scene that I've call it grown up in, let's say, is so much oriented towards online to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Where like that has become so normalized that we've like over indexed in the fact that like that's where it happens. And then you forget that like it actually can also happen in real life to a certain extent. But it is really strange. I would not say that there is that level of serendipity that happens naturally in person. I think doesn't necessarily happen anymore. And I've talked to a lot of my guy friends about it, and I think there's so many factors. For one, it's like, I think from the people I've spoken to, there's like a hesitation for guys to walk up to a girl. For one, you don't know where she's at. Maybe she is seeing someone and they don't want to be inappropriate, or they don't want to be presumptuous. Maybe they're concerned that they're going to like be unsafe. Like, is there that hesitation that you could walk up to someone and they're going to feel a little bit like turned off or creeped out, or they're not going to be safe? I mean, my guy friends, they're so wonderful. It's like, it's nice to hear people think like that and talk like that. And I can't imagine, but yeah, there's like so many factors at play that make it really difficult.
Yeah. It is also, I think, like getting out of the office while, or being in the office less. Like a lot of people, even if they weren't dating at the office, by like building more friendships at work was sort of exposed. They were like, oh, my friend is single, like you should hang out. Like there was sort of more matchmaking based on like work proximity. Like that, I mean, effectively that was like how me and my wife ultimately met, was like shared professional like colleagues in advertising adjacent industries, like knowing each other, being in similar spaces. But if you're not, building those kinds of friendships in work environments, either by sort of being fully remote or not exposed or distributed offices or things like that, like all of a sudden that becomes like a pretty big inhibitor. I saw some study, I can't remember any of the data, but like a big takeaway was like one of the factors that is like making it more challenging is like a lot of people used to find their partners through some like work related connection. And I'm like, oh, like that's a bummer. That's like a second order effect that no one was thinking about in sort of like back to office versus remote work conversations. It's like the marriage rate is going to plummet as a result of people not meeting like similar age and interest people through professional networks. Like, yeah, it's not like an obvious like first thing that comes to mind in back to the office conversations.
Everyone back to work. We gotta get the relationship train moving. It's time.
The marriage rate is declining. We need everyone back to the office. That's all Jamie Dimon. That's the only reason he's been talking about all of these things publicly, is because he's really looking out for the birth rate. I don't know. That's
the long-term vision that those leaders have, They're just looking to the future.
I normally Jess does the wrap-up corner. I don't know. Do you want to try to do the wrap-up corner? I feel like I'm so bad at these.
Oh, gosh. I can. Let's give it a whirl. Well, we've really talked about the kitchen sink.
Johnny on the spot.
For context for the pod listeners, I was trying to really optimize Joey's time today to determine my personal brand so that I could be an influencer like Becca Bloom and have a nice side hustle where I got sent free stuff. So if there's anyone listening to the pod and wants to spark my influencer career, that could be a separate topic. But on today's episode, How does Jess start this? I'm not going to actually try and do it the way Jess does because I don't think I'll be able to do that justice.
None of us. Yeah.
We shifted gears a little bit to talk about dating and kind of the optimization culture that has come around dating today. A high yield investment strategy that feels to be permeating the dating landscape. But I leave far more hopeful, I would say, based on the contents of our discussion. The butterfly effect, the beauty of a Russian hacker bringing Joey and his wife together, just how things can happen so naturally and fluidly, and, you know, the different approaches that people take when it comes to dating. So, you know, we made it full circle.
Yeah, just turn to Russian hackers. Don't optimize. Be open to serendipity, or maybe watch the John Cusack film Serendipity, about going to like the cupcake shop and meeting Rachel Moynihan. Maybe who is his love interest in that movie? I don't know. Yeah, or just like super optimize.
Yeah, or you do you. Everyone do you. Did you like that shameless self promo I put in at the beginning of the wrap up corner?
Yeah. Yeah, reach out, criticalnonsense@sylvain.co if you have influencer opportunities for Chloe. And it wasn't Rachel Moynihan, it was Kate Beckinsale. There we go. 2001, a different time. Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production. As always, we'd like to thank our currently absent but always present executive producer, Jess Vander. We'd like to thank our sound engineer and just beautiful Spaniard, Alex Cuntel. He's looking at me like I'm insane. We'd like to thank our programming coordinator and magician, because I saw a magic video earlier, Les Jacobs. We'd like to thank our programming crew, Sarah Gilbert, Nora Mestrich, Christy Jensen, Amanda Medina, Amy Waters. And as always, thanks, Ellen. Special thanks to John Cusack, I guess. Has John Cusack carried over into future generations? No.
I don't think so.
No. You're not into what is like High Fidelity, Say Anything was like the early one, like Serendipity.
Runaway Jury.
Classic. Yeah, he's too old. I'm old is what I'm telling on myself. Do you have any special thanks?
I'd like to give a special thanks to Becca Bloom for sparking today's conversation and just being an overall wonderful, lovely human, and I love her. And also to the Femmes Chat, because we have these conversations on a daily, and they deserve all the claps and praise.
I'm like looking at, I don't know what I thought Becca Bloom would look like, but I see that she is glamorous, like you said, lots of like fancy, elaborate dresses, and all right, get it, Becca Bloom.
Get it, Becca Bloom.
Go for
it. When we started this, I said she had 200,000 followers. Girl has 2.7 million. I'm so sorry I undersold you like that. That is crazy. I love that for her.
Just go be on yachts and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, clearly she is doing all right. Good for her. Maybe ignore anything I said in this conversation and just like high yield financial investment, seek dividends, buy, go. All right, we did it. See ya when I see ya. Love you, mean it. Bye.
Bye.